Mary had a little man.
We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
Breaking news from the Supreme Court. The High Court has just declined to stop a ban of TikTok, now set to take effect on Sunday. TikTok is, of course, one of the most popular social media apps in this country, with some 170 million users in the U.S. alone. But the app is owned by a Chinese company, and lawmakers on both sides of the aisle have said that it is a national security risk. Today's decision comes after the court heard arguments from TikTok against the law that essentially forces its parent company, ByteDance, to sell its operations here.
Bite me, it should be called. Thank you. So this is happy Friday, you bastards. So this is where we are now. We're at a point where, and here's the mechanics of what happened with TikTok. And it's important that you remember this. It's a law. It was legislation. It was a piece of legislation that went through the House in a bipartisan manner to ban TikTok from you can't tell China what to do, right? I mean, that's self-evident. So how do you say to TikTok, you're banned here? Okay, so the way that you do that is you say, hey, Google Play, or hey, Oracle Cloud Services, or hey, the App Store, Apple, you can't have the TikTok app for download in your stores because you are American companies, and we're legislating that you can't have this spy tool, because that's what the legislation, asserted. It wasn't alleged anymore. You can't have this spy tool that collects against Americans for the benefit of the Chinese Communist government. You can't have that application, that app, in your store. In your store, if you do, you're helping a hostile nation, a nation whose interests are not aligned with ours. A nation whose, technology is taking information, data from our users here in this country. You can't have that there. And if you do have that there in your store, you will be fined for doing so. You will be fined $5,000 per user every day. Do you understand what that amount could be? Or because I don't know exactly how many American users there are of TikTok. It's rumored to be 170 million, I guess. So that's a lot, right? 170 million times 5,000. Will your calculator do that for you? It's $850 billion. It's $850 billion. It's almost $1 trillion in fines to have that in your app store, whether you're Google Play, Oracle's Cloud, or Apple. So when this piece of legislation passed the House, it then moved on to the Senate. It passed the Senate in a bipartisan fashion as well. This is important to understand. And the reason why I think there was bipartisan support for it isn't because the Republicans suddenly love their country. It's because Donald Trump in his first term was totally into banning TikTok. It was his position on TikTok. It wasn't until after this year election where he realized that he had, he logged on and signed up for TikTok. And he, shortly thereafter ended up with 14 million followers. And so he said, I have a soft spot for TikTok. In fact, it's so soft, his spot, which, you could just imagine. This is what makes him so mean, I think, that his spot is so soft. And that soft spot that he has for TikTok is so soft that he invited the CEO of TikTok, Truly, to come to his inaugural. So it's going to be sort of like the head of the five families, sitting there, because he invited Zuckerberg, he invited, of course, Elon, he invited what's his face, Bezos. He like the whole heads of the 5 tech families. And it is the heads of the 5 families. I want you to think of it that way because that's the way it is. This is just exactly what Biden was telling you about in his farewell address from the Oval yesterday. He was telling you that this is the end of the experiment of, I would say regulated capitalism. I don't know how else to, express what we have had working on our behalf for the last, I'll say, 50 years, okay? So it was regulated capitalism. It wasn't communism. It wasn't socialism. It was some sort of capitalism, but it wasn't free and open and, willy-nilly. It was regulated, and it was regulated for the benefit of ordinary people against robber barons, the heads of the 5 families, the robber barons who were in charge of this here economy, like, Grover Cleveland's era, like from 1860, well, I'll say after Reconstruction. So 1877 to about 1902, something like that there. And you know what ended it? You know what brought it to a screeching halt? The head of the 5 families controlling everything, divvying up these here United States into, okay, you do agriculture. Okay, you do meat packing. Okay, you do the oil business. Okay, you do the rail lines. Okay, you do banking. That's kind of how it was. And what ended it was a lot of people, ordinary Americans, working very hard for the benefit of these robber barons, getting nothing in return for it. I mean, like nothing. They were dying on the job. Their workplaces weren't safe. 22,000 people died building the railroads. I don't know. Donald Trump's very obsessed with, how many French people died building the Panama Canal, but he's not really fascinated by how many people died building this country. However, when people started to die in the construction of this country, in the building of this country, and not getting wages that were commensurate with the sacrifice that they were making, that their families were making, living in company camps and getting paid in company shit. You have to be careful when you say that. They organized. And it was, in fact, labor unions that made all the difference in the way the middle class was able to grow and be a thing in this country. And that is why Biden has a soft spot for working people who ended the Gilded Age, which is the word itself, the words itself, Gilded Age, is a Mark Twain expression. And it's meant to, invoke satire, to point and laugh at something that was trying to be called the Golden Age, which is what Trump is calling these next 4 years, the Golden Age. It's going to be the Gilded Age. And so if past is prologue, which it is, I suggest you learn a little something about the robber barons. I suggest you learn a little something about the Gilded Age. I suggest you learn something about grift and graft and, paying off the people at Tammany Hall, okay, and understanding what you have to do to play. And, of course, it's payola. You have to pay to play. And we've been going over this, for the past, I'll say, since November, since the results of the election, right? And then, of course, finally, Joe Biden gave a farewell address from the Oval Office where he talked about how fragile this democracy is and how it succumbs to oligarchy if there's no guardrails. Donald Trump is putting these loyalists, these people who are incompetent, the kakistocracy is being compiled and put together. Kakistocracy meaning the worst people to hold these jobs. He's literally going out and seeking the drunkest people, the worst people, the most inexperienced people. I mean, did I actually sit there and watch Kristi Noem try to pretend like she should be in charge of immigration policy at the Department of Homeland Security? The girl is from a Dakota. Okay, she's lucky enough that we have 2 Dakotas, okay? She's from a Dakota. They don't have a border with immigration problems. She doesn't know anything about immigration law. She doesn't know anything about Homeland Security. She's there as window dressing. And yes, you could lick her lips and stick her to the wall now. She's become a blow-up doll to appeal to Donald Trump's tastes. It's very sick. But she's going to defer to Tom Homan. Homan.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
With just 2 days before the ban on TikTok is set to take effect, the wildly popular platform is finding a temporary lifeline from President Biden in a major reversal as he prepares to leave office.
The fight isn't over. It's just going to be extended.
Two administration officials tell NBC News the outgoing White House will not enforce the hundreds of billions of dollars of potential fines against companies that host TikTok, essentially pausing the ban from taking effect Sunday.
Things are starting to look really good for TikTok.
Congress passed the law last spring with overwhelming bipartisan support.
Right.
It required TikTok's Chinese parent company, ByteDance, to sell the app to an American company, something it's given no indications it has plans to do. This is all over national security concerns. The Chinese government could steal the user data or manipulate the content shown to Americans. TikTok denies this.
Nothing has changed. The national security concerns remain exactly the same.
Then why do you think the Biden administration is taking the step to say we're not going to implement this?
The Biden administration has 1 day left. They certainly don't want to take the political heat for shutting down a popular app. This is going to go over to the Trump team.
President-elect Trump, who tried and failed to ban TikTok in his first term, now supports saving it, with his incoming national security advisor confirming they have plans to intervene.
We're going to find a way to preserve it, but protect people's data, and that's the deal that'll be in front of us.
This latest effort to keep TikTok from going dark to its 170 million American users comes as the company's CEO, Shou Chew, is expected to attend the inauguration ceremony on Monday, sitting on the platform alongside other tech executives, including Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Mark Zuckerberg.
I mean, this is so obvious. I mean, the thing about TikTok, I don't really care about TikTok. Okay, I'm not an influencer on the TikTok. Okay, it's not my thing. Wouldn't be my crowd. It's a younger crowd. You understand, right? You under we're more of well, Twitter's a sewer. So I used to love Twitter, but now it's a sewer. I basically don't do social media anymore, really not, and it's to my own detriment. That said, this isn't really about anything except this. So it was legislation that was passed by the House and the Senate. It was signed off on by the president, Joe Biden. It was challenged in a court of law. Okay, it got challenged on behalf of the people who use TikTok, influencers, people who have businesses that they find very profitable to run on TikTok. Okay, good for you. Yay. That no problem with you at all. None. Just know that. The Supreme Court said this is not about free speech. This is about a platform. Okay, they tried to argue this is about free speech. And I keep on telling you over and over again that private platforms, especially TikTok, which isn't even an American private platform, their business is collecting your data, as you know. And private platforms also are not the government. So they can infringe on your free speech if they so choose. They can fact check you. They can block you. They can ban you. They can do whatever they want because they're private. They're private. And the First Amendment protects you from government intrusion into your free speech. Yours. Not a platform. Not a platform. Now, we can get into the weeds about strict scrutiny versus immediate scrutiny. Strict scrutiny is when your free speech would be, threatened or impeded. This is not that. This is a company that is collecting data against Americans for a communist government's benefit. That is what this case is about. And so the Supreme Court actually sided with the bipartisan legislation and said, we're upholding this law, and it's a law because it doesn't infringe on free speech. It is a national security issue. It's frightening what they're doing. There was some documents, some classified, top secret documents that were introduced as part of the case that we weren't privy to, and we're not privy to. And the Supreme Court had a little look-see, listened to the arguments from both sides, and said, this is a national security threat. Sorry, we're going to go with the legislation. We're going to go with the law. The law actually stands constitutional scrutiny. The law passes constitutional muster. Okay, so that's where we are. Now, when this legislation was written, the start date of the ban, should it have passed, which it did, would be Sunday, this Sunday, the 19th, knowing that the 20th was not only inaugural, depending on who won the election, but it was also Martin Luther King Day. which would give everybody a federal sort of holiday break before action had to be taken to enforce that law, to enforce it. And so it was written into the law that it would happen on a Sunday and then followed by a holiday Monday, a federal holiday Monday. So you can't do anything. You can't do anything with the federal government on a Sunday and a federal holiday because it's a federal holiday. So that was done on purpose. Why? Because whatever the Supreme Court would have ruled, whether they were going to throw it out or uphold it, the next administration, whether it was Biden, whether it was Kamala Harris's administration, or it was back in April, it would have been Biden's administration when he signed it, or an incoming Trump administration. It would be left for enforcement to the next administration to enforce. And what I think, because of the, I know we lost because of the ridiculous conspiracies and the heinous pro-terrorist emphasis that was in social media after the terrorist attack on Israel that killed over 1,000 people in one day and took 250 people hostage. That whole story was set aside and twisted and maimed, mangled, and mutilated to support a terrorist organization who did it. And that's the power of social media, by the way. That is the power of disinformation, misinformation. That is the power of propaganda. It is the power of of reporting out of context. It's really sad, but that's what cost us the election. Just so you know, 29% of the people who voted for Joe Biden in 2016 did not show up. Did not show up. That's a lot of people to not show up. And the number one reason they gave, Gaza. Not that I want to talk about that anymore, okay? Because the day will come when phase 2 has to kick in, and you'll see it will never happen. Phase 2 will never happen, not with Trump and not with Bibi and Trump. There's no way. And phase 2 says the war is over. This first phase is a ceasefire to get some hostages out, and that's okay with everybody. But the next phase, no. His whole government will fall apart. Bibi's government will quit. They will resign. He will have no coalition. And then the real investigation into what happened October 7th, how the security lapse occurred, what did he do, what did he not do, why didn't anybody show up for 13 hours? That inquiry actually would begin if he's not the prime minister anymore. So there's that. But this TikTok thing, okay, this is going to be the first test of Donald Trump's official immunity. Meaning, what if he refuses to enforce what the Supreme Court said he must enforce, and he does it for money? What if he invited the guy who owns, who is the CEO of TikTok to his inaugural so that he can, broker a deal where he gets commission for the sale of it?
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
I don't know why I can't get REM. It's the end of the world as you know it, as we know it, out of my head. I don't know why would that be playing on an endless loop in my brain? I don't know. Bill in Detroit.
Hi, Randi. It's great to talk to you.
How you doing?
I don't know. It's 3 days.
I know.
It's like standing in the middle of the street and seeing a bus coming at you and you're paralyzed and you can't move.
That's a great analogy. That's exactly what it feels like. Exactly.
Yeah, there's nowhere to escape. But I just wanted to say that I'm here in Detroit, and what you've been talking about the people, that were criticizing Joe Biden about the war and everything. I can tell you for sure it's probably or one of the biggest reasons. Maybe the biggest reason why he didn't win here in Michigan.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I just never understood people that, he can't make Netanyahu not bomb Gaza. I mean, he can't just, it's like people thought that it was him that was doing it or something. So ridiculous.
Well, yeah, I understood, how ridiculous that thought was, but also the fact that everybody, when the hostages were taken and the posters went up, do you remember how people were out there and filming themselves on TikTok and filming themselves on Instagram and putting the videos on Twitter and everything, ripping those posters of those hostages down?
Mm-hmm.
And saying they deserved to be taken. They deserved it. I mean, I was like, what is going on in this here country? And I understood that normalcy was going out the window. But I always understood why Biden, who was nauseated by the amount of carnage that Bibi was using, the weight of the bombs, everything about it was the targets. It was very, very, very Aleppo. It was very Russian. It was very, it was exactly what Vladimir Putin did to the rebels in Syria who opposed Assad, who's now gone, which I thought was a very good result. And we hadn't deployed one single soldier. But, the idea that Biden stood with Netanyahu in that way is only because he was fighting our enemies for us. And our enemies weren't necessarily the people in Gaza. Our enemies were Iran and Iranian proxies like Hamas, like Hezbollah, like the Houthis in Yemen. And getting rid of Assad was just an added extra attraction. I mean, the result here was awesome. It was incredibly good. It freed Lebanon. It freed Syria. I mean, it did so much. And I think, pretty much Biden's war cabinet and Biden's generals and Biden's national security advisor, Jake Sullivan and Blinken, the diplomat, they all knew what was going. They all knew we were going to end up getting a lot of our goals accomplished without sacrificing one American soldier. And if you ask me as an American, was I for that? Yes, I'm for that. Never mind that I served, but as an American person.
Well, yeah, thank you for your service.
Oh, you're welcome. It's my pleasure. But I mean, honestly, that accomplishing a goal like weakening Iran, getting rid of its proxies, freeing Lebanon from Hezbollah, freeing Syria from Assad, who literally destroyed Aleppo. And all these people go, well, and people would say things, they'd make it racial. They go, well, as a brown person, I cannot allow for these war crimes against the Palestinians to go, unpunished, right? And the second you bring up race or religion, and start calling people anti-Semites or whatever, there's no conversation to be had. It's a conversation ender. And so it ended, as far as I was concerned. There was no way I could talk about it, right?
I mean, it was a terrible situation for Biden and Kamala to be in. It was a no-win. There was no win.
But they wanted Kamala to disavow. And how do you walk away from something is benefiting the United States mightily in that region without using American force, without using American troops, without using American, launches? I mean, it was so like, hey, you want weapons? Hey, we sell weapons to everybody. You want daisy cutters? We'll give you daisy cutters. We'll give you whatever you want. Go fight our enemies for us. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, in Michigan, you know about the the largest Muslim community in the country.
Dearborn,
about 10 miles away from me.
Yeah.
So
I appreciate how hard it was for them. I do. I really do. The suffering was humongous. The suffering was ridiculous. It was almost unforgivable, okay, in the way that this thing was conducted. But I will say, I've never seen a government where, we got Trump goes, I will never tell you what I'm going to do before I do it. Well, Israel's the exact opposite. They tell you exactly what they're going to do before they do it, so you can get away from what they're going to do before they do it, because they don't really want to do anything bad to civilians. But you had a terrorist organization that used civilians as human shields, literally hid with them in schools and hospitals and buried under the ground, under kindergartens. This is a very twisted war-fighting tactic, and
that type of thing is the human shield thing. That should know no color, no religion,
right?
No nothing. I mean, that's just evil.
It's pure evil.
And they, I feel bad. I've friends with so many. And the Dearborn mayor came out early and was ripping on Biden. I don't know if he might have softened up a little towards the election and maybe after Kamala got on board, but he was, and it just made me sick right from the beginning because he's the mayor of Dearborn, so obviously, and so it was just bad. But I think all eyes are on Gaza right now because I don't know if Orange Winter is gonna,
Not
I'm
a
just wondering
chance,
whether,
pal. Not a chance. Okay. BB. Okay. Here's the thing. Biden laid out this whole plan, okay, the whole plan, and left it for, Trump to enforce it, to execute it, to implement it. This was very smart because you consider what Trump handed off to Biden. What Trump handed off to Biden was 2,000 troops left in Afghanistan, with thousands of Afghans needing to be evacuated to the United States because we promised them that if they helped us, if they translated for us, or if they, snitched out, ISIS or the Taliban, that we would get their backs, right? And, so Trump being Trump, he handed off to Biden a Doha agreement with 2,000 troops on the ground and a date certain to get the hell out of there. And you know what?
Oh my God.
We did it. He ended a 20-year war, and guess what? People blamed him for that. Okay, he ended a war in Lebanon. People blamed him for that. He got rid of a dictator in Syria. People blamed him for that. He weakened Iran. People blamed him for that. There is no way that people will not blame him when this deal falls apart, and it will.
Well, thanks a lot, Rand. You're the greatest. Thanks for what you do.
You're welcome.
See you later.
Bye. Happy Friday. No, seriously. I mean, phase one. It's going to happen. It's baked into the cake, right? And you'll see hostages come home. Phase two, no way.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
All right, everybody. It is the end of the world as we know it. I mean, there's no doubt that things are going to change around here. The question is, do they change for our benefit or do they change for the elite, for the benefit of the wealthy, for the benefit of the uber owners, the people who own this country? Yeah. And do we create less and less of them and, go right back to the guild? I mean, listen, in the next hour, I'll talk about how technology, I've been doing a lot of research and reading about the Gilded Age, okay, about how it happened and why did we get robber barons and how did they, figure out that this guy, should get the meat packing and this guy should get the banking and this guy. It was pretty straightforward. They had a meeting. They had the head of the five families. They all got together in New York, around the corner from where I used to live. Okay, on Madison Avenue, on the corner of Madison and I think 38th Street, 38th or 39th, 38th Street. I'm going to say. I used to walk my dog around that block. And on the corner is the morgue. It's now the Morgan Library. It's J.P. Morgan's house. It is where the meeting of the heads of the five families literally took place, where they divvied up this country. And how were they able to do it? They did it because of technology. They did it because improvements in manufacturing, improvements in refrigeration, improvements in communication, just like now. New technology changes everything. Everything. And they always show up at these, moments when there's chum in the water. Oh, technology is going to change the way you live, and technology is going to keep you in your house, or technology is going to get you out of your house, or technology is going to put you in the field, or technology is going to take you out of the field. Do you know what I'm saying? And we're at this moment, which is what Biden kept telling you. He didn't use that many different words, which is, I think, why people got bored with him. And I love him, as you know. For me, he was the most like FDR I will probably ever see in my lifetime. Truly. Trustbuster, didn't let grocery store mergers happen, ended a wildly infectious pandemic that the previous president had choked. He had frozen. He decided to call it a hoax, a fake, something that didn't really, wasn't a threat to your life and your livelihood. Meanwhile, 2 years we're in a house. 2 years. Oh, my God. Anyway, we'll talk about it. Susie in Oregon.
Hi.
Hey.
So I have a very ominous feeling about what's going to happen once Trump gets in, and I've had this fear ever since he announced running for president again.
Tell me.
Well, in the first term, everybody referred to all of his close ties with Putin as, him having such a close relationship because Trump was the useful idiot to Putin. And he got so close to all these other Kim Jong-un and all these other dictators around the world and always has praise for them. It's like he wanted to be one of their, one of that club. And I've been telling my husband for a long time since, and then especially since he won the election. I agree with you about the REM song, It's the End of the World. That's been my motto ever since then.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing that I've told my husband that terrifies me the most is that he went from being the useful idiot to being something even beyond that, because with his ties now that he's drawing with all of these dictators around the world, I have a fear that him and his connections with all of those, that they're going to know that everybody that he is putting into all of these high offices, the Secretary of Defense and everything, they're going to know, and I think they probably knew this in hoping that he would get elected, that he would put in the most incompetent people in his cabinet to run all these agencies, that the U.S. will be totally defenseless, and that will be their cue to come in and take over the United States, because there will be nobody knowing in any of those positions what to do, how to protect us. And the other thing that has me upset is the fact that all of the Republicans in the Senate and the Congress and the Supreme Court, everybody that's allowing him to do this and siding with him, thinking that they're going to get
a piece?
A piece of the action. Yeah. That what they don't realize, and this is what I've been telling my husband for months, that what they don't realize is that they're helping him to achieve his goal of becoming the king of not only the king of the United States, he's telling everybody in the what to do, thinks he's the king of the world. But once they help him get what he achieve, what he's wanting, he will have no use for them ever. They'll be gone. There will be no Congress. There will be no Senate. All of their hopes for all this power and being on his good side, once they help him accomplish what his goal is, he won't have any use for them. And like I said, with everybody incompetent that he's putting into all of these offices and stuff, it'll be Kim Jong-un and Xi Jinping and Putin and all the other ones around the world thinking, wow, now's our time. He's got no defense. He doesn't know how to run this country. None of them do. And that'll be their opportunity to swoop in. And there will be no United left.
So some of it I agree with. That's kind of the worst case scenario where he does what he says he's going to do. He's going to take all the money. He's going to, enrich himself. He's going to make deals with all these oligarchs around the world. Everybody's going to pay him. Everybody's going to, grease him so that they have access to our, everything from our oil fields all the way to our steel production, and on, right?
Right.
And so that reminds me of this scene from Goodfellas where Paulie says to Henry, so he gives him $3,200 and he says, now I got to turn my back on you, right? Because he's no good to Paulie anymore. He doesn't help the capo anymore. So there's that. I can see that. But then I think about how he's going to need friendlies. He's going to need people to be the front line for him to take the incoming. And that's kind of where some of these senators might land, and they might have a good ride for the next, 7 to 10 years. And that's all they kind of want, is not to be primaried in those 7 to 10 years, get a little, run protection for him, be the button man if they had to. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It could go either way. It could be either he turns his back on all of them or that he needs them in place to help him fend off the people,
Right.
So I don't know how it's going to play out, but I have the same sick feeling you have that no good will come from this.
It really is. It does feel like, those Armageddon movies, the end of the world.
Yeah.
It really does, because I can't see anything good. And like for years in donating to the DNC and, you know, and all this stuff, you know, they always have the questionnaires about what do you think the Democrats' top priorities should be. And they never listed for years. I was always adding a comment in there about that the environment, climate, should be the top priority, because if we don't have clean air to breathe, clean water to drink, or, you know, purified land that we can grow crops on, there's going to be no civilization left to worry about any of the other topics that they wanted as their top priorities.
Yeah,
and then now if we see
guys
what's going
like,
on in Los Angeles, and
so,
you know,
so poor Los Angeles, really poor.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
horrible.
No, I mean, now that Trump has come, I mean, last time they had a wildfire, I don't know, it was Paradise, and he went there.
Right.
He couldn't even remember the name of the place. He called it something else, not Paradise.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah, I remember that.
Right.
Well, my kids, I've got a daughter
let me just finish
that was
this.
evacuated twice from Santa Rosa when the Tubbs fire went through there.
Okay.
And then I had a son a couple of years ago that got evacuated in Windsor, California, because of wildfires and stuff. So it affects me personally.
My daughter's in, I don't even want to say, but she's in LA. She was evacuated. But anyway, to finish this thought, back then he did not want to give the aid, the relief. He didn't want to pay the FEMA funds. He didn't want to do because he said, quote, it's not a hypothetical. He actually said, they don't vote for me.
Right.
So poor LA, okay? Poor California. They don't vote for him. And now he can hold them hostage to price gouging. He can hold them hostage to, you know, no money for remediation, no money for... And then where do you go for relief?
Yeah.
And that's why I want people who are Republican, who voted for guys like Kevin McCarthy or Darrell Issa or any whole, you know, there's a whole bunch of, you know, California Republicans in the House and in, you know.
Right.
Where are they going to go when the oligarch himself says, no, nothing for you, so go complain someplace else?
Right.
Right.
And forgetting a couple of weeks ago that there were those hurricanes that went all the way up through Tennessee and North Dakota or South Carolina, whatever it was, those states up there that weren't even on the coast, and how they were wiped out.
Yeah, but they vote for him.
Mary had a little man. The fault. We believe that all men are created
equal to the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
I really am concerned about how fragile democracy is. That sounds corny, but I mean, I really am concerned because you've heard me say it 100 times. I really think we're at an inflection point in history here. We're unrelated to any particular leader. Things are going to change drastically. And it occurs every 5 or 6 generations.
Yeah.
And it usually is generated by technology, usually generated by, I mean, for example, if Gutenberg didn't invent the printing press, how that would Europe ever gotten united in any way to understand what each country is thinking? I mean, it sounds stupid, but it really matters. And what I realize is that, look, I got involved, I didn't think about it this way, but I got involved in public life because of the abuse of power. I mean, my dad would say, you know, the greatest sin of all is the abuse of power. I was a runt when I was a kid. I was a small kid. I was a pretty good athlete all the time, but I was, and you know, I learned how to fight when I didn't want to fight. But when you get made fun of, you learn to step up. But what it did was, it made me realize that there's so damn many bullies around. And I now extrapolate that all the way to democracy. The reason for all the safeguards out there is, in a very trite way to say it, keep the bullies from taking advantage of everybody else.
Yeah, there was a whole part in there where he talked about guardrails. I don't know what happened to it. But anyway, so Biden is trying to explain to you that every 5 or 6 generations, there is a technological renaissance. For us, we had, I don't know how many people, you know how old I am, so, whatever. Take a look. The old lady's talking about the brick phones again. Yeah. You remember those, the cell phones that we had back in the 80s? Yeah. They were like the size of a head. And I would never, ever have had one. But Jimmy, my first husband, Jimmy, he loved technology. I mean, guys do. They just do. They will play video games. They will look at CGI and go, "Oh my God!" They love new tech. Guys like gadgets. It's just, it's a thing. Now, I mean, I can use gadgets and I can learn them if I have to. You know what I mean? Like, I'm pretty damn good on the back end of a website, only because I have to be. I'm pretty good at, getting this show on the road because I have to be. I'm pretty good at, ransomware and people, attacking, my websites and all. I know just how to do it because I have to. But the difference between like when the computer was an entire room, kind of like crypto is now, it's entire buildings of blockchain technology. And they keep on telling, we need so much electricity. We need so much electricity because blockchain, it takes so many computers to keep that thing, going and a lot. And we have to generate, we have to give it, and we have to. I remember when my dad was an engineer. He worked for some of the greatest defense contractors in the history of defense contractors. He worked for Honeywell. He worked for Airquipped. He worked for a whole bunch. He also worked for Polaroid and a couple of Mattel toy companies making good stuff. But I remember going to his office when he was working, I'm going to say it was Honeywell because it was out on Long Island. And I went into this room. It was more than a room. It was like a bunch of rooms. One, like one long corridor. And there were these machines and it was freezing cold in there. Okay. And I was like, what? I was young. I was like, what is this? What is it? He goes, this is a computer. And let me show you what it can do. And he went and he was like programming this thing on this keyboard and telling it what it wanted and blah, blah, blah. And he said, now wait and go to the other end. You have to now we have steps on our phone. It'd be like 10,000 steps, Not really. But, and all of a sudden this thing starts whirring and typing and making and doing. And it created a giant bunch of pages, whole lot of pages, that came out in nothing but X's and O's, and made a drawing of Snoopy. And it was called Snoopy Fun, the program. I'll never forget. I still have it. And he was fascinated. Now, my dad went on to, help people develop things like computer-aided design and blah, blah, blah out in California. He moved out there and started, working for a different kind of company. And, I remember being shown that this vat of polymer, which is like a soft plastic, that he could draw on his computer screen a distributor cap for a car. And then he could tell the computer to use the lasers in this vat of polymer to create an actual 3D distributor cap and give it to me. That was the very beginning of 3D printing, okay? And every once in a generation, or many generations, technology becomes so ubiquitous and so important that it starts to control businesses and lifestyle and everything changes. I mean, one of the examples, I guess, would be the television, right? I guess that would be a game changer of technology because all of a sudden, people are raising kids by sitting them in front of the screen and letting the screen raise their kids. And it changed parenting for generations. And the same thing is happening now with social media. It's changing our interactions with each other. It's changing whether we go to the movies. It's changing whether we sit and binge watch stuff on the television. It changes whether or not we go to each other's houses or we just text each other or we just how many hours a day of screen time we're doing instead of interacting with other kids or instead of interacting with our family or instead of interacting with our husbands or our what. Do you know what I mean? Like the whole way of living is changing because of social media. It is a game-changing technology. Back in the day of the robber barons, okay, what changed with regard to technology was things like, this is kind of an obscure reference, but I was reading about it, so I'll just put it out there because some people might know it. But there was this thing called the Bessemer process. It changed the ability for us to make steel. Okay, it changed the ability for us to turn iron into steel. It changed society. It changed business. It changed building. It changed everything. And it wasn't the only thing that was changing back then. Like before the Civil War, before the robber baron era, it took 61 hours to produce an acre of wheat. So if you're listening to me and you're in farmland or you are in agriculture, that changed your entire way of living too. By 1900, it took 3 hours to process an entire acre of wheat. 61 hours days versus 3 hours and many acres processed in a day. Do you see how that? Also, because of the spindles and the mills and the textile industry changed and the way that we were able to, have factories and sewing machines. And then we got adding machines. One of the big game changers was Swift, the meat company, Swift. They're barely around anymore because I think Hormel kind of replaced, I don't know, I could be wrong. But Swift, that man was in Chicago. After we learned to manufacture ice, in copious amounts of ice at a time, he invented the refrigerated rail car and changed the whole meatpacking industry. Everything changed. It put so many butchers and mom and pops out of business.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Okay, and so these corporate titans, the people who were benefiting from these, inventions, even, listen, I don't know if you have a fond place, a soft spot, if we quote Trump, in your heart for Thomas Edison, but Thomas Edison literally gave every New York legislator $1,000. It was New Jersey. $1,000 to every New Jersey politician to pass favorable legislation for him and his marketing of his inventions and his patents and his, exclusivity rights and his, listen, and what happened during the robber baron era was people understood that grift was necessary, that politicians were looking for to be greased, they were looking for grift. And if they would pay to play, if they would, bribe people, they could get a protected market. And so then they all met and they said, okay, so let's divide up all the markets. You get this, you get that, but I want you to keep this in the neighborhood over there because those people have no souls. Do you know what I'm saying? Like that was kind of how business was done back then. And, when you put guardrails up, which is what Biden was talking about last night, when you put guardrails up that say you can't do that, you can't do monopolies anymore, you have to bust the trusts, and that labor unions were a significant force against this behavior because the people who were doing the backbreaking, ugly, dirty labor, I mean, they were hardly being paid. And, if there was wage theft, then they had company farms where you had to live on the company farm and you had to buy at the company store. I mean, it was such a corrupt era. And that's why it was called Gilded, not Golden, because Mark Twain was making fun of it. There's a whole book that he wrote called The Gilded Age. A Story of Now, I think, is the subtitle of that Twain book. You should read it. You should really read it because this is where we're going. This is what's going to happen. Now, I'll show you the grift. Let me just read you this. The first transcontinental railroad was built with blood, sweat, politics, and thievery. It's already gripping. Out of the meeting of the Union Pacific and Central Pacific Railroads, the Central Pacific started on the West Coast going east. It spent $200,000 in Washington on bribes to get 9 million acres of free land and 24 million in bonds, and paid 79 million in overpayment of 36 million to a construction company, which was really its own. It's grift. That's about to happen again. People are going to pay these companies that are really their companies to do all kinds of work. Listen, Elon's very smart in this weird way. He's just cutting out the middleman. He wants NASA. He wants NASA. I mean, think about that. Yes, did you see his space thing? I forget what it was called. Space 7, Space something 7. What was it called? Starship. Now I can't call anything Starship without compliments to Grace Slick. One pill makes you larger. Okay. Anyway. Starship 7 just exploded over the Turks and Caicos. Now, think about it this way. If the Turks and Caicos were going through a dry spell, or if the Turks and Caicos was Los Angeles, or if the Turks and Caicos was paradise, or if the Turks and Caicos was any place that was full of brush, and it exploded. Did you see what it looked like? I'll show you what it looked like. It's very pretty. Look at that. Look. It's almost... fireworky. And the people in the Turks and Caicos who were on vacation. They didn't know what it was. They would say, "What is that? Everybody, look up, look up." It's like, don't look up. It's like that movie. Oh, it's crazy. And they didn't know what it was. They were like, is it fireworks? What is it? Is it shooting stars? No, it's Elon Musk's Starship 7 blowing up. And if that would have happened over a fire area, a dry area, do you think Elon would pay? Do you think he would get fined, or that he would be responsible for rebuilding all these? No, I don't. This is grift, you understand. And now he wants NASA to pay for these starships that blow up. Cars that crash, cars that, crash into people, cars that, There's one theory on the LA fires. I don't know that anybody knows what caused them yet. But there is a theory floating around. Okay, it's at my hair salon. And you know how cray-cray those ladies are, right? You know how they're nuts. But the owner's sister, and the owner is a Trumper, and the sister apparently just goes along to get along. She doesn't have the sense God gave her. Sorry. But she said, I heard it was a Tesla that exploded, and that's what caused the fire. So that's where I'm getting it from. I would not take that to the bank. Okay, but that's but anyway, so when they were building the railroads, there was so much grift going on. Union Pacific started in Nebraska going west, okay? It was given 12 million acres of free land and 27 million in government bonds. And it created this company called Credit Mobilier. The Godfather 3 actually tries to dip its toe into, this. But anyway, this Credit Mobilier company gave them $94 million for construction. It was their company. Credit Mobilier was Union Pacific's own bond-making company. And it gave them $94 million for construction, but the actual cost of the construction was $44 million. So what happened to the extra $50 million? Well, in this day and age, that goes to Trump. Do you see what I'm saying? This is kind of what technology brings. And what's really creepy about the technology that was changing everything in the late 1870s to the early 1900s was that it was kept to the elite, it was kept to the rich. The financing for it was created out of whole cloth by free gifts from the government. Then the companies would start these banks that were really them. It was really them lending to themselves and then skimming off the top to pay the guy who gave them the free stuff. And we're about to experience all that again. What's really sad is the people that get hurt with this system, and that's us. It's workers. It's everybody else. During this period of American history, the Gilded Age, 92% of Americans lived in poverty. 92%. We were not paid fairly. Our workplaces were dangerous. And the Supreme Court of the day was saying things like, you can't put all the wealth of America into the hands of these, working Joes, these stupid stiffs. You can't. You'll create a welfare state, okay? It has to stay. The money has to stay with the elite. It has to stay at the top. Only they know how to manage this technology. Only they know how to manage space. Only they know how to manage satellites. Only they know how to manage war. The contractors are essential. Do you know what I'm saying? And we are just some flotsam and jetsam to be tolerated until we ask for our fair share. And then the Pinkertons. The Whacking Huts. Security.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844.
561-270-3844. So you may or may not be familiar with Scott Bessent. It is a name of a very, very, very rich man who apparently has an issue with paying his taxes. And he's now been nominated to be Donald Trump's new Treasury Secretary, kind of like the Steve Mnuchin dude who just worshiped money so much that him and his, fashionable wife, let's say, went to the Treasury and had to finger the money as it was being printed. It was very exciting for her. It was the thing that turns her on the most. Not Pornhub, which, by the way, is illegal in many states now. But no, she had to touch the money. That's her wheelhouse, let's just say. Well, Bessent is one of those. He's a guy who worships money and tax cuts. And when Senator Warnock from Georgia was questioning him yesterday, he asked him, basically, is there any level of wealth? Is there any level of obscene amounts of wealth that you would say you would be willing to raise taxes on? Like, is it people that make over 400,000? Is it people who make over $1 million? Is it people who make over 10 million? Is it people who make $100 million a year? Should their taxes be more than the secretary, more than Randi Rhodes, who, is runs her own small business, right? So you pay like 29% when, there's a small business tax. You pay almost 30% when you run a small business, okay? If you're a sole operator. But if you are living off of capital gains, meaning your money is making money and you're not doing any labor and you're not running anything, you're taxed at like a third of that. I pay 2/3 more than Warren Buffett. I mean, anyway. So he said, is there any level? Any. You might be surprised to know his answer is no.
In 2013, Congress extended the Bush tax cuts for everyone except those making more than $400,000 a year. This bipartisan decision saved the Treasury $600 billion, helping to narrow the deficit. Do you agree that ending the tax cuts for those making more than $400,000 would help close the deficit and reduce our national debt?
Senator Warnock, I do not. I believe that you would capture an inordinate amount of small business people who largely are in that cohort of 400,000 to $1 million.
So you wouldn't cut it off at 400,000. What about $1 million?
That again, I believe these are small business pass-through owners, and I believe that we, as I said before, Wall Street's done great. It is time for Main Street to do well, and small businesses need to drive what I call the reprivatization here away from this government spending.
I agree that it's Main Street's time, I'm from Atlanta, so I'll say Peachtree and some other locations in my state. What about those making more than 10 million? Would we reduce the deficit by extending those tax cuts for folks making about $10 million?
So again, I think it's important that we put in incentives for them to invest. So going back to the 100% depreciation for equipment, that I think that.
So and I don't mean to keep interrupting, but I'm the pastor, and we're known to be loquacious of speech, but I'm running out of time here. What about $1 billion?
$1 billion.
So again, I think that these are the job creators.
So there's no income level for which you would support raising taxes. Is that fair?
There is no income level that I don't think we should continue the TCJA as it was.
Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. That is the single thing that Donald Trump did. The tax cuts. Okay, he's characterizing people who actually have $1 billion in not revenue, $1 billion in profits, taxable profits, that they be left alone by a tax increase. Now Warnock starts very smartly by saying that when the Bush tax cuts were expiring, and Congress, literally the economy crashed under George W. Bush. The economy was literally driven off of a cliff, and we went through a humongous recession with his tax policy. And so when it was time for those tax cuts to expire, Congress said, you know what? They can expire for everyone making over $400,000. But the people at the bottom who got really hurt with this housing crash, they get to, we will extend the tax breaks for them. That in turn saved us $600 billion in deficit spending because those tax cuts were not paid for. Donald Trump's $2 trillion worth of tax cuts, they were not paid for. And if you extend them now in 2025, the cost of doing that is almost $5 trillion more dollars added to the debt. And this guy here is saying the debt is out of control. This is the problem that America has, and I have to, not. So when you ask him, well, would you raise taxes for people making over $1 billion? No. Would you raise taxes on people making $100 million? No. They're small businesses. What small business are you aware of? Because I ain't. That makes $100 million a year and is still, under 50 employees. I honestly, I don't even know what the hell to say to this guy. But you have to understand he's performing like a trained SEAL for Donald Trump. They're all doing it. This guy literally just signed off on the elite staying in control of the entire coffer of the U.S. Treasury, and that we will just sit at the table and take the crumbs and shut up about it. It's worse than that. In an oligarchy, which is what we had in, the Gilded Age, when you had a few people just, owning everything, which is what they're trying to do here. They're trying to accomplish an oligarchic situation where everybody pays Donald Trump. Everybody pays him just like they do to Vladimir Putin in order to be in business in the United States. And in exchange, he'll make sure they don't pay anything back. They don't, and that they can skim. They can skim the whole way, pay themselves under the table, start a bank, make loans to themselves that aren't regulated, say, this project I'm doing over here, my Starship thing, it's going to cost me $95 million. I want NASA to do it for me, and you hand them the bill for $95 billion, but it really only costs $45. So what happens to the other 50? Maybe, if Trump's a benevolent dictator, maybe he splits it 50-50. If he's not so benevolent, maybe Elon's got to pay him 90, and Elon gets to keep 10 of the overage of the grift. How are we going to survive this is the question, right? We're going to talk about a general strike. A lot.
is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Oh, everybody, look who it is. It's Lana in Tennessee. Hello, Lana.
Hello, Randi.
How are you? I'm good. It's Friday.
Hey, actually, I called in mainly because we have something to be joyful for today. The ERA is now the law of the land. So thank you, Joe Biden. I've been, ever since I heard about how close we were and that all he needed to do was sign it a couple of months ago. I don't know if I heard it on your show or somewhere else, but
you did.
I've been, yeah, I'm sure I did. And I've been on tenterhooks, and I haven't heard anything since. And so I was thinking, oh, no, he's going to leave. He's not going to have time. And it would be such an important thing, you know. And then a friend of mine sent me a text message, you know, a little clip, you know, of signing it. So I was just so excited, and I thought, you know, I'm not going to let what is going on in D.C. right now and what's going to happen on Monday steal my joy over that for today.
Well, Lana,
you know,
there really is another step that needs to happen before it actually becomes
first my bubble.
The what? Yeah, there's a little trouble, a little bit. So, yes, Biden told a conference of mayors that the ERA is now the law of the land. Right now, it is. It's the law of the land. Yeah. It's been ratified, blah, blah. It's the law. It's the 28th Amendment to the Constitution now, he said. But it has to be published by the archivist in order to meet, you know, all of the... And the archivist is saying... the statute of limitations on how long you had to ratify it had passed, and it doesn't matter that this happened, you know, in 2020, because it was supposed to happen within 7 years of 1972. It didn't happen. Yes, that's where we are on that. So.
Oh, my bubble is burst.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry I popped your bubble. I'm sorry.
I know.
My gosh. We should all get used to it. We should all get used to having the joy sucked out of our lives.
Yes. I mean, you have to be joyful about, you know. And I mean, last week I tried to call in and, you know, I when I spoke to you around Thanksgiving, I told you that my baby brother set up an investment account for me. He's a stockbroker.
Yeah.
And he gave me $1 million. It's just insane.
Yeah.
And he has sent me a diatribe about, you know, he heard say, I thought Elon Musk was a psychopath. And so, you know, he took great umbrage to that. And he sent me this diatribe about, you know, you need to really open your heart and open your mind and not be so judgmental and really, you know, think about what you say about billionaires and where their real true allegiances lie. And they're certainly much more magnanimous and wonderful than you would imagine. And it was like really tough. It was really a tough pill to swallow. Meanwhile, on January 2nd, he posted my capital gains for the first of the year, and it allowed my husband and I to have our floors fixed in our house because they were about to fall in. So we've got major construction going on at my house. I mean, I have to sleep in the living room, and I've had to for the last week and a half, and still probably maybe this weekend I'll get back into my bedroom and on all beautiful, you know, hardwood floors. You know, and it's marvelous, the money, what it's bringing. But to make me feel better about it, I went and I donated money to Free Speech TV again. I donated money to your program.
Thank you.
I sent you $1,000. I hope that's enough for now.
Did you send me $1,000 today?
No, I sent week. And
I saw it. I sent you a thank you note. I was so blown away with that. I thank you so very much. And we needed it so badly last week. We needed it so badly.
I know you did. And I just, and it's really funny because, and then I also sent some money to other program about, you know, that that my counselor that I speak with every week, he's also a pastor, believe it or not, but he's a progressive pastor. He's a very open-minded pastor, and he also works with Hispanic folks that are here trying to get their cards and then also trying to become American citizens. And he runs a program for that. And I donated money to that.
Oh, that's
and
lovely.
I found out at Christmas that's another one of my brother's pet peeves is, the whole border thing. And they went on and on.
So
they spoke about it. Go ahead.
I was going to say, let me give you a little bit of ammunition for your brother, okay? Who sounds like a very nice guy who's a little off the beaten path with regard to, wealth and who creates it. If you're a shareholder, you're the owner of the company. The billionaire owner of the company is taking so much more of his fair share than you are, and your money is just as involved in creating his company's wealth as his, 4-hour 9 martini lunches are. So there's that. But the thing that you should explain to him is just ask him this simple little question. Who's going to rebuild L.A.? Do you think it would be Angelinos, or do you think it's going to be immigrant labor that's going to do the debris clearing? And do you think it's going to be immigrant labor that's going to do the construction work? And do you think the floors that are being laid, who do you think shows up to do the roof thing? You know what I'm saying? Like,
who is going to feed this nation? I mean, if they send them all back, who's going to pick the produce, work in the meat processing plants? I mean, it just goes on and on and on, and it just blows my mind, and to the point where I get totally overwhelmed. And the way I fight back is, and my counselor and I had a kind of a laugh about it, because I said, I am giving to people and organizations, I'm giving this money that he has given me, I'm giving a good bit of it back to people that if he knew, his money that he gave me was going to support progress. I mean, the very things that he looked down on. Go ahead. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Who's going to pay the taxes on this income? You or him?
Well, he said he would. So
how does he do that? How does he do that if you're taking it as income? You are going to pay the taxes on. Stop with this is his money. It's not his money. He grew some amount of money for you and handed it to you. And now it's yours, and you're going to pay the taxes on it, and you're the owner of these shares. And the idea that, he hates immigrants and that all they do is pick produce is crazy, okay? It's nuts.
It is crazy. It is crazy, and I mean, he claims that, well, when you get the tax bill, just let me know how much it is, and I will send you the money for it. And I mean, he sent me extra money for my home repairs. So I believe him when he says that, because he really does love me. He's just had his mind so twisted. He has been in this rarefied air of billionaires, because that's the kind of people whose money he handles. And it's just, it's really, he's been conditioned, because he didn't used to think this way, Randy. He really did not. He was in the Navy, and, I mean, he was very progressive. I mean, he voted for Clinton twice. I mean, even though he got a lot of guff from some of his fellow sailors. I mean, it's just nuts. But, like I said, I just get a thrill out of giving, the money that, because of him, a large, you're right, though, it is my money now. But the bottom line is that I think it's kind of, it gives me a satisfaction to know that I'm giving it away to people that, that he would be just mortified if he knew.
Yeah.
And I mean, I would get a real big vicarious thrill out of that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you should.
That doesn't mean very much for my.
I got all
I
these
know.
other
I
calls here.
love you.
I love you
so much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, honey.
Bye. Killian in L.A.
Hi, Randy.
Hi.
Just wanted to make a comment and get your take on the situation with the impending TikTok ban on Sunday. Just made this analogous connection between the Gladiator movie, the first one, the incestuous evil son, when he becomes Caesar. He uses the gladiators, returning them back to the Colosseum.
It's what Lana's brother is doing to her. Yes, may I, did you have a question in the last 30 seconds?
Oh yeah, I guess I was just gonna see if you feel like Trump is gonna use the reversing the TikTok ban to win over like 100 million plus users on TikTok.
Yes.
To sort of divert us from from what he's gonna do.
Yes, of course. Yes, of course. And he will take something off the top of the deal too. Believe me. There's going to be money changing hands like crazy at that inaugural. And it all starts on Monday.